Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Against the Sky Supreme based on novel. So let's start. Hearing this, Zhong Zutian swallowed his saliva in fright. And the 6th-7th level earth gods who were about to kill Tenyun looked at the mountain like Tenyun, their legs trembling uncontrollably. What they fear is not Tenyun's current strength, but Tenyun's identity. They can see that after the reincarnation of Hongmeng Supreme, he did not die at all. Thinking of Tenyun's former identity, the hands of the 6 old men holding the swords trembled violently. At this time, Zhong Zutian thought of the past when his father betrayed Tenyun, and he knew that today and Tenyun are doomed to never die. But he was also afraid of Tenyun's identity, and he didn't know the strength of Tenyun, so naturally he didn't dare to go up and fight with Tenyun, so he said sharply to the 6 old men, "You don't need to be afraid of him, he must not hide his cultivation. Just a 4th-class god." The reason why he was able to kill Ju Tong was because he was too strong to challenge the sky. However, no matter how defiant he is only a 4th-class god. What are you afraid of when you fight one? Listening to Zhong Zutian's words, the 6 old men wanted to cry without tears. What are you afraid of? Even if you are an 8th-level earth god yourself, you are too frightened to do anything, so you just talk and don't practice. The 6 people were unhappy in their hearts, but they dared not show it. Looking at the 6 people, Zhong Zutian shouted, "What are you still doing? Come on. As long as you kill him, take his head, and go to Lord Ling Xiaotianzuan to ask for credit, we will achieve a great achievement. Even Siyuan Supreme and Chaos Supreme will reward you." Hearing this, the 6 old men were heartbroken, and they shouted, "Second young master is right, let's go together, don't treat him as Hongmeng Supreme. Kill." The 6 old men restrained the panic in their hearts and killed Tenyun with divine swords without reservation. Death to Lao Tzu. Tenyun sighed, his body like a mountain, his speed soared, and instantly dodged the sword beams of 5 of them. A jet-black dragon, with a collapsing void, was drawn on an old man. "Ah! Second young master, save me!" Boom! The old man's cry for help came to an abrupt end, and his body was under the whip of the ***** of death. Looking at the blood mist that was about to disappear into the primordial sky, the other 5 7th-level earth god elders screamed with chills down their spines. "Second young master, I'm afraid we are not his opponents, let's run away." "Yeah. Second young master. As long as we escape and report the news to Lord Ling Xiaotianzuan, we are also a great achievement." Listening to the advice of the 5 old men, Zhong Zutian said with a livid face, "I can't escape." According to classical records, Hongmeng Supreme is the eye of the Hongmeng 2 divine sword formation. Only by killing it, or injuring it heavily, will this sword formation be broken without attacking. Hearing this, an old man shouted with a face ashen, "Second young master, is there no other way?" "Yes. But yes and no." Zhong Zutian responded, "Unless we are much stronger than him, we can break the sword formation." "Stop talking, the 6 of you go together." Having said that, Zhong Zutian looked back and looked at the hundreds of 1st to 6th ranked gods, and without a doubt said, "All of them are for this young master." Hundreds of people stared at Tenyun, timid. Boom! Zhong Zutian smashed the head of one of his subordinates with one punch and said loudly, "Those who violate the order will be killed." Everyone knows at this moment that there is still a chance of survival if they go up to fight, but if they don't go up, they will die. Kill. "We are so many, don't be afraid, kill him." As a result, hundreds of people, together with 6 old men, dispersed from the Hongmeng void and surrounded Tenyun. Dozens of them had apparently also practiced some kind of body refinement technique, and their bodies had soared to a height of several hundred zhong, but facing Tenyun, who was as high as 5,000 zhong, still seemed too short. Brother-in-law, people haven't moved their muscles and bones when they arrive in the realm of the gods. "I'm here." Following a naughty voice, Shuiziyan, who was wearing a purple dress, held the 5 elements divine sword and flashed away from Tenyun's head. The next moment, she appeared outside the vast void, holding a sword to pierce the heart of a 3rd-class earth god. Push! After Shuiziyan drew the sword like lightning, The sharp tip of the sword was filled with blood, piercing the opponent's forehead. Husband, we also move our muscles and bones. My old ape wants to do some activity too. Quack, I'm coming too. And I? In the next moment, Tenyun's 7 wives, including Shunsubing and Tantaisiana, as well as 12 beasts such as the heaven-killing demon ape and the heavenly Luo Long Bear King. There were also Sushan, Qianqian, Qingcheng, and others, who came out of Tenyun's side and stood in the air. At this time, Zhong Zutian said with a wicked smile, quickly grabbed the person beside him and threatened him. It's the second young master. Let's go together, they are all gods, we are not afraid of them. Hundreds of earth gods targeted people other than Tenyun, screaming and killing. However, the next moment, they realized that they were wrong. The women, old men, and 12 mythical beasts beside Tenyun were simply fiercer than each other. Especially the ape with the black stick, who can't see the rank, and the golden lion, it's really terrible. And the dragon bear with the giant hammer, too crazy. Su Bing, the 5 7th level gods, and Zhong Zutian, I will deal with them, and the others will be handed over to you. After Tenyun left a sentence, he held the divine shattering whip and performed the Hongmeng divine walk. The speed was so fast that the 5 7th level earth gods lost consciousness as soon as they caught the trace of Tenyun. Bang 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 bang. But it was 5 people who were smashed to pieces by the divine whip of death. Buzz. In the collapse of the void, Tenyun was like of death. He suddenly took a step, stuck out a finger from his left hand and pointed at Zhong Zutian, with a deep voice like thunder and a loud explosion, "Come here and fight." Roar? Zhong Zutian roared like a beast, "I'm afraid you won't succeed. In my eyes, you are not the supreme being of Hongmeng, you are just a man, god, an ant with a superhuman strength to challenge the sky." Immediately, Zhong Zutian's body erupted with the power of a tsunami of the gods of time, space and earth. He flipped his right hand, and a female-style divine sword with a crystal-clear body came out of his hand, and said with a wicked smile, "If I'm not mistaken, you are Tenyun. My father said that your last life will be Tenyun. Can you recognize the divine sword in this young master's hand?" Tenyun's pupils shrank suddenly, and then, his face was overjoyed. Before Tenyun could speak, Shunsubing, who was holding a sword to kill an enemy, suddenly said excitedly, "Husband, that is my time and space sword." That's right. When Shunsubing was the god of time and space, he used the sword of time and space. At this moment, Shunsubing suddenly saw her divine sword. How could she not be excited? Hearing this, Zhong Zutian sneered, "You have some eyesight to actually recognize that this sword is the divine sword of time and space." Afterwards, Zhong Zutian looked at Tenyun and said with a sinister smile, "This divine sword belongs to your former wife, the God King of time and space. After your wife died, Lord Ling Xiaojianzuan gave this sword to my father. My father gave it to me when he saw that I was a dual-level talent in time and space. Tenyun, today's young master will use your ex-wife's time and space sword to destroy you." As soon as the words fell, Zhong Zutian shouted, "The ancient sword of time and space. 6 swords cut the sky, slaughter the immortals and destroy the gods." Zhong Zutian picked up the magic formula with his left hand, and clenched the space-time divine sword with his right hand. He suddenly swung out 6 swords in a mysterious and unpredictable trajectory from the void. Boom! Immediately, in the collapse of Hongmeng Void, the 6 towering sword lights containing the power of time, space and earth gods, speeding to the extreme, towards Tenyun one after another. Boom! The divine whip of death in Tenyun's hand violently smashed the first sword beam. Bang 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 dash. Afterwards, when the divine shattering whip smashed the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th sword lights into pieces, they disintegrated into the air. Buzz dash. In the violent vibration of the void, the last sword light of the sky slashed towards Tenyun's neck. Call out! Tenyun's body suddenly fell back, his back bent like a bow, and he narrowly escaped the fatal sword. However, the strands of black hair that fluttered when he leaned back were cut off by the sword glow. Space-time clone! Zhong Zutian shouted fiercely. 1 turned into 6, and 6 Zhong Zutian, each holding the sword of time and space, used the double-body fencing technique to kill Tenyun aggressively. Town! At the same time, Zhong Zutian roared loudly, and a beam of breathtaking black light rushed out from the top of his head and turned into a black divine bell from the void. That tens of thousands of feet of divine bell, towards the top of Ten Yun's head, slammed down. Hong Meng's slaying divine sword. As Ten Yun used the sword technique, his breath rose from the 4th level human ***** to the 6th level earth god. Sungu, come out! Ten Yun's eyes were cold, and while he was drinking, the Hong Meng slaying divine sword shot out from Ten Yun's eyebrows, turned into a giant of 4,000, and shot into his right hand. Hong Meng slaughtering god sword art, 5 elements destroyed. Immediately, the vast power of gold, wood, water, fire, soil and 5 elements of human beings poured into the Hong Meng divine sword from Ten Yun's body frantically. Exclamation point. Ten Yun stood up in the air, and suddenly he waved the 5 swords above his head. In the moment, a golden power sword, a wood, water, fire and soil force sword, from the Hong Meng ***** sword, burst into the sword shooting out, from the void, the 5 merged into one, transformed into a colorful sword beam of thousands of feet, and slashed fiercely in the suppression. Under the Ferris clock. Boom! A loud bang resounded through the entire sword formation time and space, and immediately, the 5 elements shattered the sword glow, bursting from the void. How is this possible? The 6 Zhong Zutian screamed in unison, with disbelief in their eyes. But it was his 4th order top quality divine bell, and his breath was covered with shocking cracks, and then, crash! It shattered. At this moment, Zhong Zutian realized the power of Ten Yun. He dared not hold back any longer, and said sharply, "The power of the clone blends, kill." The 6 Janzutians held the same magic formula with their left hand, and held up the time-space divine sword with their right hand. Immediately, one after another sword beams shot up from the time-space divine sword, and quickly gathered from the void to form a time-space earth with a length of 100,000 zhong. The power of sword glow. Boom, boom. In an instant, the sword beam of the power of the of time, space, and earth of 100,000 zhong shattered the primordial void in the entire sword formation, exuding an extremely powerful breath, and cut down on Ten Yun. So strong. Ten Yun's pupils shrank suddenly, and his expression became solemn. But only a little more dignified. Hong Meng slaying divine sword, 7 meridians law. Stab! Ten Yun's eyes became fierce, and he suddenly swung a sword towards the sword light of the power of the gods of time, space and earth that was cut down. Wu dash! Ten Yun swung his sword out, and suddenly, the wind raged in the sky of Hong Meng, and a dazzling sword light with the power of the 5 elements and the gods of wind and thunder ripped apart the sky and rose into the sky. Collided. Bang 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 dash. The 7 meridians killed Jianmeng, destroying the power of the earth god Jianmeng, and then slashed towards Zhong Zutian's true body. How did you discover my true body? Zhong Zutian's real body made a sound of panic, just when the 7 veins law kills Jianmeng and is about to slash Zhong Zutian. His body surface is golden, and a set of 5th order low-grade golden divine armor covers his body. Boom! The 7 pulse law killing sword glow, after slashing on the golden armor, made a loud noise, and then shattered. In an instant, the golden armor showed a spider web-like crack. Although the divine armor saved Zhong Zutian's life, the huge impact force penetrated into the body through the divine armor. What? Puff! Zhong Zutian screamed, blood spurted out of his mouth, his face paled a little, and his body was blasted tens of thousands of feet. When he volleyed to stop his figure, wisps of blood flowed down his arms and dripped into the void. At this moment, Zhong Zutian's eyes became red. He knew that if he didn't work hard, he would not even have the chance to work hard. Ten Yun, I, Zhong Zutian, fought with you. 6 swords, destruction style. Following Zhong Zutian's beast-like roar, he and his 5 clones suddenly threw the space-time divine sword in his hand into the void. Immediately, the 6 Zhong Zutians, like a wisp of blue smoke, penetrated into the 6 time-space divine swords. Inside. Dash. When the void trembled, the 6 divine swords of time and space all soared to the height of 1,000 zhong, exuding the power of destroying the sky and destroying the earth. Suddenly, Ten Yun, who was around 5,000 zhong, revolved at an extremely high speed. The six-handed divine swords were swirling with lightning, and beams of the power of the earth god only a few feet long shot out endlessly from the six-handed time-space divine swords, slashing towards Tan Yun in the center. Break it all to me. Tan Yun's tone was domineering, his body like a mountain shook, and the power of Hongmeng human beings and gods rolled, like a tide of Hongmeng, surging out of his body, shrouding the void of 100,000 Zhong. Under the sweep of the power of Hongmeng human beings and gods, a bunch of sword lights with a length of Zhong, like desertification at an extreme speed, disappeared without a trace. Tan Yun. Today's young master and you will never die. It's a big deal, we're going to die together. Following Zhong Zutian's hysterical roar, 6,000 Zhong giant spacetime divine swords circled around Tan Yun, killing Tan Yun's waist at high speed. To die together? It's up to you. Tan Yun smiled charmingly, and then said loudly, Hongmeng slaying the gods, six slaying the gods. Tan Yun held the Hongmeng slaying divine sword, and when he circled in place, he swung out 6 swords. In an instant, the 6 paths contain the 5 elements, wind and thunder, time and space, death, and the power of light and human beings. With Tan Yun as the center, it blooms like a lotus flower. Cleaved on a space-time divine sword. Bang 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 dash. With the 6 loud noises, the 6 Dao Hongmeng slaying divine sword Mang violently slashed on the 6 time-space divine swords. Ah! How can you be so powerful? At this moment, Zhong Zutian's heartbreaking voice resounded through the Hongmeng 2 divine sword formation. But I saw that under the light of the 6 Dao Hongmeng slaying god sword, 5 of them concealed Zhong Zutian's avatar, the Qianzhong divine sword of time and space, which exploded from the void and turned into nothingness. And when the real time and space divine sword was cut off, Zhong Zutian, who was covered in blood and had all his bones broken, was thrown out of the sword like a cannonball. Buzz! In the shock of the void, Tan Yun's body shrank suddenly, and when he became normal height, he changed into a white robe like lightning. Tan Yun took a light step from Hongmeng void, appeared beside Zhong Zutian, stretched out his right hand and grabbed his neck. Tan Yun stepped into the void and lifted Zhong Zutian in his hands. At this moment, Zhong Zutian was limp due to all the broken bones in his body, and his tragic appearance was unbearable to look directly at. Hongmeng Supreme, Lord, don't kill me. Zhong Zutian's eyes showed a pleading look, and he said intermittently, it was my father who betrayed you back then, no matter what the villain is. As long as you don't kill me, I'll be willing to repay you in the future. Tan Yun said indifferently, there are 3 reasons why you must die. First, I trusted your father so much back then, but he betrayed me. Second, your third brother chased and killed me for several years in the fierce abyss of the gods 1,000 years ago. Third, who gave you the courage to kill me just now? Go to hell. After Tan Yun finished speaking, he pinched Zhong Zutian's neck with his right hand, and then a burst of divine power poured out from his right palm, engulfing Zhong Zutian, leaving no bones behind. As for the divine ring, after Zhong Zutian's death, Tan Yun naturally put it away. At this time, under the slaughter of the hundreds of earth gods by Shen Subing and others and the 12 beasts, less than 50 people were alive. When they saw that Zhong Zutian was dead, they were so frightened that they gave up their resistance and knelt in the air facing Tan Yun, kowtowing and crying. Lord Hongmeng Supreme, the villain knows it's wrong, forgive me. Lord Hongmeng Supreme, you don't remember villains, please forgive us. I don't want to die yet. Forgive me. Forgive me. In the face of everyone's begging, Ouyang Duantian, Guan Xiankong and the others looked at Tan Yun and cast inquiring eyes. Tan Yun turned around slowly, glanced at the people who were kneeling facing him, and said indifferently, if you are wrong, you will have to pay the price. You don't want to die? Do I want to die? If I didn't have the strength to leapfrog challenge, I would have been killed by you already, right? After a pause, Tan Yun said loudly, kill Wuxia, not a single one. Afterwards, Tuo Ying and others killed everyone. As for all the enemy's divine rings, Shen Subing put away, she floated beside Tan Yun, smiling happily. Husband, among the hundreds of divine rings I use here, there are a total of 300 top-quality human divine pills, 2,200 extremely high-quality earth divine pills. There are also 79 human divine fruits and 123 earth divine snakes. In addition, there are also a lot of divine jade. At this moment, what really makes Shen Subing happy is that she has found her old time-space sword. Hearing this, Tinyun smiled. Let me see how many cultivation resources are in Zhon Zutian's divine ring. Tinyun took out Zhon Zutian's divine ring from the immortal ring, and then released his divine consciousness, penetrated into it, and found that there were 3,000 top-quality divine pills. 300 earth snakes. Tinyun looked at the crowd, shook his head and said, we have too many people, and these cultivation resources are still too few. Next, we will continue to search until we find enough resources for our cultivation to be promoted to Earth God. Tinyun's voice suddenly stopped, and then he frowned. Husband, what's wrong? Tantai Xiana asked. Tinyun looked at the crowd and said solemnly, a 9th-level Earth God, with more than 300 people, came towards us. You first enter the Lingxiao Pagoda. Husband, be more careful. Tantai Xiana finished speaking, and the crowd and beasts got into the Lingxiao Pagoda in Tinyun's ears. When Tinyun beckoned, the 5th-order superb Shenju suspended in the void flew into the Tinyun Xian ring. Afterwards, Tinyun Xian gave a flash of black light, and when he saw the jet-black robe, he came out of nowhere. This black robe is just now, and Tinyun found it in the Shanzhu Tiantian ring. This robe has the effect of blocking people's spiritual consciousness from peeping. After Tinyun put on the black robe, the hood was covered under the hood, covering his handsome facial features, and only a pair of eyes were exposed. The reason why Tinyun is so cautious is because he is worried that if the visitor is not good, he can hide his appearance and escape. In this way, no one can see their true face. After everything was done, Tinyun put the 11 Hongmeng Divine Sword and the Hongmeng Slaying Divine Sword into his mind, and the Hongmeng Slaughtering Divine Sword formation instantly collapsed into the air. At this moment, Tinyun was standing in the dark void, and when he was about to leave, there was an unmistakable voice behind him, stop. Tinyun turned back slowly, looked at the silver-robed youth who flew in first, clasped his fists and said, I don't know if your predecessors have worked with you. The silver-robed youth frowned, and after smelling the faint smell in the air, his face changed greatly, and he said angrily, speak. Where is my second brother? This person is Zhon Zutian, Zhon Zusheng, half-brothers, Zhon Zuyuan. Could it be that this person is Zhon Zutian's eldest brother? But he doesn't look alike. Tinyun sighed, then clasped his fists and said, Senior, Junior, I don't know what you are talking about. I don't know. Zhon Zuyan squinted at Tinyun and said coldly, before, my eldest young master discovered through my divine sense that my second brother brought someone to kill you. Although, I only saw your back, but this young master is sure that you are the person my second brother wanted to kill. Then, you set up the sword formation. Now, the sword formation has been lifted. Apart from the residual smell of blood in the air, my second brother and hundreds of subordinates have disappeared. Do you dare to say that you haven't seen it? At this moment, Zhon Zuyun was sure that the other party killed his second brother, but there was no sadness in his eyes. Even Tinyun caught a trace of joy in his eyes. Yes, it is indeed a joy. Because, although there are 3 young masters in the exhibition family, so far there is no young master. It stands to reason that Zhon Zuyun is the boss and should become the young master, but he is a descendant, while Zhon Zusheng and Zhon Zutian are direct descendants. Although he is literate and martial and talented, but because he is a concubine, he has not been able to become a young master. At this moment, Tinyun shrugged, yes, your second brother was killed by me, what do you think? Hearing this, Zhon Zuyun suddenly raised his head and laughed, ha 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 ha, second brother, eldest brother, I know that after you came to the fierce abyss of the gods, I chased after you and wanted to kill you, and then I tried to kill the old man. Third, in this way, the position of the young master is my elder brother. But I didn't expect that you would die at the hands of this person before the big brother had time to attack you. You're too useless to be killed by a 4th-class god, you're so useless. After laughing, Zhon Zuyun said in a low voice, second brother, for the sake of calling me so many big brothers before, big brother will avenge you today. After listening, Tinyun looked at Zhon Zuyun and the others, and found that apart from Zhon Zuyun, who was the 9th-level Earth God, the more than 300 subordinates behind him were all Earth gods. And the 8th-level Earth God has reached 30. Escape. Without saying a word, Ten Yun turned his head and turned into a beam of light, traversing the valleys at high speed. Boy, you can't escape. Zhon Zuyan sacrificed a fifth-order high-grade Shinju and chased after Tan Yun with everyone. Whether I can escape is not up to you, you can catch up with me if you have the ability. Tan Yun let out a scornful sneer, and in Zhon Zuyan's desperate eyes, he sacrificed a divine boat. Zhon Zuyan could see at a glance that the Shinju was the fifth-order superb artifact used by the second brother on weekdays. Tan Yun swept onto the Shinju and laughed wildly. Ha ha ha, yours is a fifth-order high-grade Shinju, I see how you can catch up with Grandpa. Afterwards, Ten Yun drove the Shinju and shuttled aimlessly through the vast abyss of fierce gods, 3 points faster than Zhon Zuyan's Shinju. Just 7 days later, Ten Yun got rid of Zhon Zuyan. Even if Zhon Zuyan released his divine sense to the extreme, he could not find any trace of Ten Yun. Mother! Zhon Zuyan yelled angrily. Eldest young master, what should we do now? An 8th-level Earth God old man asked respectfully. What should I do? Of course I will continue to chase. Zhon Zuyan's face was gloomy. I just blamed this young master for being mean. I thought I could kill that kid, so I said that this young master went to the fierce abyss of the gods to kill the second brother. In case this kid, in order to take revenge on me, tells my father the memory image of my speech, then I will never want to become the young master. It's just that the fierce abyss of the gods is so vast, if we want to find this person, it will not be easy. Hearing this, more than 300 henchmen on the Shinju behind him nodded in agreement. At this time, the old man named Fang Dong, whose eyes flashed brightly, bowed and said, Eldest young master, this old slave has a solution. Come on. Zhon Zuyan urged. Fang Dong hurriedly said, Eldest young master, we can divide our troops into 2 groups and guard the exit of the fierce abyss of the gods all the way. No matter who wants to leave, we will search for their souls. Of course, the purpose of this is to prevent that boy, hide your true cultivation and escape. The other way is to try your luck in the fierce abyss of the gods. On the way to search, give priority to searching the souls of the 4th-class gods. In this way, there is the greatest possibility to catch that kid. We have time to spend with that kid. Once we catch that kid and kill him, we will not only get the technique for his leapfrog challenge, but also take the head and return to your father. Your father must have been furious when he learned that the second young master was killed, but at this time the murderer was caught by you, the first young master. The old slave thinks that the master of the family will make you the young master. In addition, you should send someone to go back and inform the patriarch of the death of the second young master as soon as possible, so that the patriarch can send a large army to the fierce abyss of gods. Hearing this, Zhon Zuyan's eyes lit up, and he praised without hesitation, Not bad, this is a 2-killer plan. No, it should be a good thing to kill 3 birds with 1 stone. That kid killed the second child for me. Then, after I killed him, I could not only win the favor of my father, but also sit on the position of the young master, ha 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 ha. After the long laugh, Zhon Zuyan looked at Fang Dong and ordered, Although you are an 8th-level Earth God, your strength is stronger than that of the second child, so let's take 29 8th-level Earth Gods with you. Search in the divine fierce abyss. My young master will lead people to guard the exit of the fierce abyss of the gods. Afterwards, Fang Dong and other 38-level Earth Gods released their spiritual consciousness to the extreme, and launched a carpet-like search in the fierce abyss of gods not far from each other. And Zhon Zuyan led more than 290 people to drive the Shinju and fly towards the exit of the fierce abyss of gods. At the same time, Tan Yun, who escaped, rode a Shinju and appeared over a giant waterfall in a valley. Whoosh! Tan Yun rode the Shinju, drew an arc from the void, and drilled into the water curtain cave in the waterfall. After Tan Yun set up the soundproof barrier, Shen Subing and others came out of thin air from Tan Yun's side. Tan Yun said with lingering fear, You don't have to worry, we have successfully escaped. Shen Subing said, Husband, let's not look for cultivation resources for the time being. The cultivation resources in our hands are enough for us to advance to 2 small realms. After we are promoted, we will go out to look for it, or leave this place and go to other gods to find cultivation resources. I'm worried, now that the other party has blocked the exit of the gods and fierce abyss, they have sent people to the Supreme God King City to inform Zhong Peng. The Zhonpeng in Shen Subing's mouth is the owner of the Zhon family. Now he has stepped into the realm of the king of gods. Hearing this, Tenyun nodded in agreement. Su Bing, you are right. We should use the existing cultivation resources to quickly improve the realm, and then leave the fierce abyss of the gods to avoid the limelight and go to other places to find cultivation resources. At this moment, everyone in Tenyun knew that they could not return to the secret place in the depths of the fierce abyss of the gods, because there were no cultivation resources in the secret place. Although oneself and others can enter the secret land and avoid danger, it is difficult for oneself and others to improve their strength without cultivation resources. Moreover, in case, after Zhonpeng learned of his son's death, he personally descended to all gods' fierce abyss. Tenyun understands even more that even though the enemy does not know his own appearance, if he encounters him and uses the soul-searching technique, his murder of Zhon Zuqian will definitely be revealed. Thinking about it, Tenyun looked at the crowd and said, I don't need the top-quality human divine pill in our hands now, I'll give it to you. Taking one human divine fruit is equivalent to the effect of 100 top-quality human divine pills. After we divide it up, we will immediately retreat and practice. With the help of God fruit, our cultivation speed can be increased by more than 100 times. This place is quite far from the Supreme God King city. We must improve our realm and leave the fierce abyss of gods before the army arrives. After he finished speaking, Tenyun sacrificed the Lingxiao pagoda, and distributed the human divine fruit and human divine pill to the crowd, and then entered the divine tower with everyone to retreat and practice. In the 48th-story tower, Tenyun sat cross-legged, and the human fruit was suspended in front of Tenyun. With the refining, surging divine essence gushed out from the human fruit, like a torrent in the air. Influx into the Tenyun Ling pond. Time flies and never returns. 2 years later, Zhon Zuyun led his subordinates to the exit of the fierce abyss of the gods, and then sent people to rush to the distant city of the supreme gods. Afterwards, Zhon Zuyun hummed a little tune and began to plan to wait for the rabbit. The 4 seasons alternate, and soon another 7 years have passed. 9 years have passed since Tenyun retreated to the outside world. 9 years in the outside world, according to the 100 years of the outside world in Lingxiao Pagoda, Tenyun and others have spent a long 328,500 years. In the Tao time, Tenyun's cultivation speed increased by more than 100 times under the premise of refining the human divine fruit. As early as 140,000 years ago, he condensed the 5th Hongmeng human divine embryo and was promoted to 5 weight for God. In these 140,000 years of cultivation, Tenyun has vaguely touched the barrier of the 6th class gods. He is racing against time to practice. This video will end here.